Hello, Wrestling Inc., and welcome back to the Wrestling Inc. YouTube channel podcast stream here. Thank you for finding us out there on social media, iTunes, and elsewhere. It's me, the managing editor of Wrestling Inc., Nick Hausman, and I have a great panel today to pundit with, to talk all things professional wrestling, the day after SmackDown Live. First of all, I'd like to welcome Justin LaBar. Justin, thank you very much for joining me again.
Always good to now see you every Wednesday.
I know, right, buddy? And the man with the plan, the man who started it all, joining me today, our first podcast together and my new gig, Raj Giri. Raj, thank you very much as well for putting this together.
Hey, man, thank you.
Thank you for creating Wrestling Inc., Raj, right? I think it's the best way to say that.
It's my pleasure.
Well, let's get to it here today, gentlemen. It is the following day after SmackDown Live. We are on the road to Super Showdown. We are on the road to Evolution. We're on the road to a lot of things right now, but we're going to focus on SmackDown and Super Showdown this Saturday. And last night's SmackDown Live was taking place from Portland, Oregon, and was started off by Paige in the ring addressing the heinous actions of Samoa Joe last week, invading AJ Styles' home. Now, Paige, infuriated by this, the whole WWE board apparently infuriated by this. They were so upset they were going to fire Samoa Joe, but the man who actually saved Joe's job was none other than his nemesis, AJ Styles, which led to a clip of AJ cutting this impassioned promo about why he wanted Joe to stay a superstar so he could get his hands on him and finish what he started at Super Showdown. So I'll throw it first to you, Raj. What do you think of this opener here? Do you think it kind of put the right necessary fire on this big title match going into Super Showdown?
You know what? I thought it kind of cooled it down a little bit. I thought on the go-home show to not have either of the guys on was a curious choice. Really, it was kind of forgotten about this whole match, and I thought it made AJ look weak. I thought AJ staying at home and being like, I got to stay at home, almost in tears, and they would not book the people they protect a lot, right? They would not book Roman this way. They would not book Undertaker or Brock or Braun, saying that they're going to stay home because they're the family's upset. I think it made AJ look weak. The crowd was booing him. He had a cool line at the end saying he was going to bury him. I hope that's not hinting at a buried alive match. But yeah, I thought it made the AJ look weak, and this did nothing for me or the feud. I almost feel like last week's angle should have probably been the last one before Super Showdown.
Yeah, certainly a lot of fire last week, but I think you're going to get that buried alive match, Raj. I think that even with there will absolutely be a winner stipulation that's been added to this match, we may still not get a winner. So, Justin, I'll kick it over to you here. Raj seems to think a wet blanket was thrown on this going into Saturday. Is that the same vibe you got?
Well, they certainly didn't dump kerosene on the fire. I mean, the promo by AJ was well executed. And I like the twist of him being the one to save Joe's job, so he can go ahead and so he can deliver the execution of Joe. But yeah, I mean, he's at home. At least if he's gonna be at home, like he's at home sitting by himself on a couch. Like let me see the family at least. That's crying, scared, and then not to have either man live, in the arena for the audience on your go home to what's supposed to be this personal feud. I mean, I'll say this, it's not. I mean, I'd hope to see a buried alive match. I'll say this for what they've pulled and for the whole home invasion, and then the I'm staying home until Joe's on a plane out of the country, then I'll leave and go to Australia. This better be one of those matches. I don't want to see both men come to the ring and they wait for the introduction and they wait for the bell to ring to lock up. Like, this is one of those ones where, because when you do this kind of home invasion, this needs to be AJ moving faster than normal, meet in the aisleway, kind of like how Ty Dillinger and Randy Orton started their fight that we'll get to in a little bit later.
Yeah. Isn't it interesting though? Like, this is the WWE Championship feud, and how personal they made it, getting the families involved, and how low importance-wise this feels for the Super Showdown.
Well, and I think they did that on purpose. I think they're doing that on purpose. I think they want to keep it hot, but they don't want to keep it so hot that they're building to the finish of these two. I think that, they're in an interesting spot right now. They're doing something that they've not traditionally done in the past, and that's advertising multiple shows at the same time, right? You've got Super Showdown, but you've also got Crown Jewel, right? Evolution. doesn't involve all the men, but you still, that's 3 shows there for the women you're working with, right? So you need these feuds to kind of stay alive, I feel like, a little bit longer than they used to. I also think that the multiple shows announcement thing is possibly something they've pulled from the independents. I think a lot more independent promotions are doing that now, where they let their fans know of a lot more shows. So I think that this is intentionally done to not feel like the end. And I think that Buried Alive line was absolutely the setup for Crown Jewel, right? Or Survivor Series, where they're going to do the all-out Buried Alive match. They're going to bring it back.
How many more times can you do this match? This is going to be the 3rd pay-per-view now that they've done it.
They're good. They're both very good wrestlers.
They're good, but
there's actual legitimate emotion there. That's very rare these days, you know?
There is, but at some point it gets long in the tooth. At some point they got to move on. And look, nothing on Raw or SmackDown, we're going to talk about the ratings later, is really knocking them dead right now as far as bringing in new viewers and lighting the world on fire. First of all, I think WWE needs to make this feel more important. If they're going to keep going with this, you're bringing up that they don't want to give away too much, but look at how big they were pushing Roman and Braun, even though that wasn't going to the finish, right? That wasn't going to their last match. They need to make the WWE Championship more important. They need to make AJ more important. Stop always booking him, putting his match on, in the middle or not last. They need to give this title, make it feel more important.
Yeah, Justin, I'll throw it to you before we move on. Do you feel the same way? Do they need to put more importance? I think we're gonna get it here when I think Miz is gonna beat Daniel Bryan. My gut says at the Super Showdown and go on to put these styles in a bold new direction. I think will be great. Agree? Disagree?
Yeah, I mean they certainly could. They're not, as long as they have joint pay-per-views now. They're not. AJ's not going to go on last. That's just the reality. As long as Roman Reigns and Braun Strowman and such are involved, or Brock Lesnar are involved in the Universal title picture, that AJ's just not going to go last. The title, that the WWE Championship certainly could use some added importance feeling. I think part of that's a little bit where AJ's long run, his long title reign, that's sometimes where that can hurt things, because he's had his long title reign. Glenn and I discussed this a lot. Up until recently, a lot of it's all just about, I'm the best in the world. Nobody can, beat me in the house that I built. This is at least something that has a little bit of a different dimension, different depth. But it's kind of just, it's him doing all these, just beating all these opponents. The Nakamura thing, I think, was kind of a disappointment compared to what everybody's expectations were. They certainly could add importance to this. And I do think, I agree with you, Nick. I do think once he gets past Joe, Miz probably is his next heel. And the Miz, to hit all the Miz's credit, seems to bring the best out of everybody.
Yeah, and where do you go with a guy like Joe? Sorry, Raj, I mean to cut you off, but where do you go with a guy like Joe after that? I think it makes all the sense in the world for AJ to get another big win and move on to a guy with Miz who's a very different energy. But where's Joe left after this if he just loses? I
almost think Joe has to win. I think I don't know. I think AJ versus the Miz is even further down. Make it even further down the line of importance. The Miz is entertaining, but people don't take him as a credible threat. They look at him as someone who's an entertaining guy. But you look at Daniel Bryan and how hot he was earlier this year, and just how far he's come down with this feud with the Miz by, kind of getting punked out at every corner. And he's just, he's gotten a lot colder with this feud. I don't think the Miz is going to do AJ any favors. I almost feel like you got to have Joe beat AJ, and that's how you keep this feud going. Because AJ beating Samoa Joe again does nothing.
Yeah, but Miz beating AJ and Joe doing something to help AJ lose the title, I think would maybe, you could even maybe spit them out and do it again after the fact. I don't know. I think these two have a real great blood feud energy about them. I don't mind watching them go against each other multiple times. They've kept it way more interesting than a lot of other storylines in WWE right now. And
Raj, yeah. Raj, I don't think you're giving enough credit to the Miz here. I think in the WWE world, of what have you done in WWE? The Miz is a much more credible threat to take the title than Samoa Joe is. What has Samoa Joe done?
You know what? You're probably right, but sometimes you got to look at who would they book against who they consider a superstar, right? Which talent would they book against The Undertaker at a WrestleMania? And you know what? There's hardly anyone right now. You got Braun Strowman and Roman Reigns, really. Yeah. Or Shawn Michaels. Well, they consider at that level.
They put the Miz in Madison Square Garden against The Rock and John Cena. So.
Right, but that was a tune-up to their actual big match, right? That was just a way to pop a pay-per-view. The match that they were really building to was Cena and Rock.
And I find myself in a situation of undervaluing sometimes the breakout, beyond pro wrestling success of people like The Miz, people like Nikki Bella. I oftentimes don't think I give enough credit to what Nikki's done outside of pro wrestling, the brand she's built there. But Miz, the Miz and Marie show is amazing. It's hilarious. It's engaging. I know it does very well. I think that he's starting to find that kind of luster as well, and could be looked at in a very. I think he's absolutely top talent. I'm with Justin. I think that he's a guy that's a real threat, and people take seriously right now. So,
to your point about The Miz, though, I will say this: when someone was asking me of the current, when I was at the New Japan event this past Sunday, someone was asking me, who's not a wrestling fan, who is the biggest star full-time, the biggest current star, not counting like Cena, but the biggest current full-time star probably to the mainstream audience. And honestly, mainstream people probably know the Bellas and the Miz more than anyone else on either roster. Now, that doesn't mean they pay to see them, but they know them.
Yeah, I mean, you say people, hey, remember the Miz from Real World or Road Rules, right? And people are like, oh yeah, sure, he wrestles still. You kind of get a little of that.
Yeah, I agree with all that. I mean, when the reality shows on E, while we as the wrestling purists might sometimes roll our eyes at the ridiculousness of them, they get watched. Hence why they're still in the air. And I know that when Eva Marie was still with the company on Total Divas, the time or two that I did media and stuff like that with Eva Marie, and I would post it across my social media, what have you. I would get such a whole other bigger reaction from people, especially like on Facebook and such, where you have people in your general life or whatever who that's the girl with the amazing red hair. My wife watches her, or I watch her. So the reality shows absolutely have a big thing. So yeah, the Miz and the Bellas are top of the reality show for WWE. So absolutely, I think the Miz is the correct answer, Raj.
And we're obviously excluding Ronda Rousey.
Yeah,
well,
of course.
In a world of her own, different brand. Right. Let's kick over here. Man, a lot of time spent on the opener here for good reason, though. A lot happened there. We'll go to R-Truth and Carmella. They took on Andrade, Cien Almos, and Zelina Vega. A little bit of mixed match challenge action. I love that on SmackDown there's almost like this Saved by the Bell couples high school theater drama constantly going on. Like there's a lot of couples on SmackDown Live, and I don't hate it. It's different. I actually kind of enjoyed this. Not too. I don't think I need to overthink this. The Fabulous Truth picked up the victory here.
It's a giant infomercial for the mixed match challenge.
Yeah, R-Truth's hilarious. I don't know, Raj. Any deep punditry about this one?
I mean, I like R-Truth. I just felt like this is part of a lot of SmackDown. I felt like where you could have skipped this show. And outside of the Aiden English little video bit, you missed nothing this week. That's kind of how I felt with the show. And this was part of it. It's just filler that really, it's not going to mean much. It's just a promo for Mixed Match Challenge, which itself is filler. It peaked at 42,000 live viewers this week. So that's how far down it's come.
Yeah, and I don't know if it's, I see Mixed Match Challenge, and I know I'm a 33-year-old old millennial, right? There's stuff that just doesn't hit me like it does the younger people, right? And I think the hip Facebook thing with the Mixed Match Challenge works for a younger demo. I do think it just doesn't, I don't know. There's something about it, the way it's packaged. I just don't think it appeals to an elder generation.
I don't know if it appeals to millennials either. Otherwise, the viewership would be going up, right? I think the way they market it is like to 8-year-olds with the words flying at the screen and then just playing off of each other's catchphrases.
Yes, it does. It looks like a Nickelodeon show. Not that I watch Nickelodeon, though I have caught the Muppet Babies show a couple times just for nostalgia's sake. It does. It feels like it's for like little kids. Yes. I don't understand that. Is that the Facebook demo now? I don't know.
But you watch the show and it feels like that. Last night you had Naomi and Lana doing a 3-minute dance off, and actually, I think that peak viewership was during that point.
Sure, women have always traditionally drawn very well. All right, let's move along here to something with a little bit more bite to it. We still got a lot to get to here on the show. Ty Dillinger went approached Paige backstage, said he really wants Randy Orton. Orton viciously attacked Dillinger last week, and Paige says, Well, you defeated Shinsuke Nakamura, or Paige says, or defeated Shinsuke last week, and technically Dillinger interrupts her, says he's going to deal with Nakamura later, but he can't let Orton's actions slide. Paige points out how Jeff Hardy has been away since dealing with Orton. Dillinger doesn't care. He wants to take care of Orton. Paige ends up making the match, and Ty walks away. We could kind of table this a little bit, but I'm very happy. I brought this up last week, I know, with you, Justin. I think it's great to see Ty Dillinger with a little fire to him. I think the fans will eventually finally get behind this guy. I think he's a good guy in this role. Man, Orton is a monster right now. I hope he destroys Evolution at SmackDown 1000. I hope he just like ties up Ric Flair in the back and goes like wrestling dogs on him. You know, that's what I want right now from Randy Orton.
Triple H won't let Randy Orton destroy him, though.
Orton goes.
The Evolution reunion will be kind of random because you have like Randy Orton right now, who's like, he's like inspired by the Saw movies. He's like doing all this like torture, and then you have Triple H, who's getting back in DX mode. So it is going to be odd that they're right in the middle of all this, that they're going to go back to doing Evolution for a night, assuming that they're together. And like you said, Nick, like Orton doesn't just go crazy on all of them.
Yeah, I think Orton definitely should. I like this Orton. I think this is the most interesting he's been in a long time. I don't see much for Ty, unfortunately. I just see that they have him pegged as a utility player. They bring him out when they need him to get someone over. I hope I'm wrong. I like Ty. I think he's a good talent. You know what? We were talking, to your point, Justin, about Samoa Joe and AJ, and Samoa Joe not really being that guy, and as far as Miz being that guy, which I don't necessarily see it. I could see them going in that direction, but I don't see that being that pushes the SmackDown feud way down, in my opinion, compared to the Raw feuds. I think Orton and AJ, if you have AJ beat Samoa Joe and Orton does this sadistic stuff on AJ, that could be something with a lot of heat, and you got Orton's star power, and that is something I think could bring the belt up a little.
I have it in the back of my head that Jeff will come back and they'll restart that feud when it's appropriate. I don't know personally, but with Orton, I think he's. I mean, look, Orton is the best now he's been in a very, very long time. Absolutely. I don't necessarily see him as the guy for AJ, just because, and this sounds weird, AJ's had a lot of really good matches. I think he needs a change of pace, and I think that The Miz, who does have very good matches, but his energy, the stories he tells are very different than those other kinds of guys. And I just don't see Orton I still take Miz over Orton for AJ.
Yeah, I don't see Orton doing the whole torturing AJ Styles thing. I mean, I think it was I think we got the big omen last night. Again, I'm jumping ahead a little bit, but listen to the Miz's commentary during Daniel Bryan's match, and he's putting down wrestlers and all the guys that do all the moves, but none of them do have personalities. He even named AJ Styles. Miz did. He said, do you think the Today Show is asking for AJ Styles? They're asking. So right there, I think that's your baseline for the feud. The Miz, again, oh, you're so phenomenal. You do this, this, and this. Well, you don't have a face for television. You don't have a, I think that's. So I think it's just screaming at us. Which again, I would prefer that because why? Because it actually touches a real button with the same audience that's watching this podcast right now is okay. Are you a guy who's more of a wrestling fan that wants the moves, or are you more of the entertainment? Like that would be more of the Miz. I think it pushes those real buttons versus what button does it push when Randy Orton's trying to find creepy ways to make you cringe.
And in the long term too, I hope Miz does take the title off AJ. If Joe cost him to it, and you could go off into a blood feud with those two even further, do the buried alive thing. Maybe at Survivor Series. But Daniel Bryan winning the Royal Rumble to take on Miz at WrestleMania is like, it doesn't really get much better than that. And it's a very viable storyline that can still play out here. You've got just the right amount of time. Daniel Bryan got famous losing a lot, right? That's the thing that made everybody rally around him. I like that they haven't really tried to change that model now that he's back. Anyway, we'll table that because we got a lot more Dillinger and Orton and Bryan to get into here on the show. Let's go back. We've got the New Day coming out. They're going to do a pancakes cooking demonstration. So they're in the ring. They talk about defending against the Bar at Super Showdown this Saturday, and admits they've been a bit off when it comes to the Bar as of late. They introduce the staffer who often appears in segments and reveals that he's the one who cooks their pancakes each week. They introduce him as Chef Mr. Bootyworth. Everybody loves Mr. Bootyworth. They go on and they get interrupted by the Bar. Sheamus says it looks like they've got another week of the New Day coming out and acting like children, playing with food instead of training for a title match. Woods says the bar is ruining their pilot filming. Cesaro asks how you can ruin something that's already awful, and he says that they're here to help. Sheamus reminds Cesaro is from Switzerland. The Swiss are exceptional with pastries. Fact. And Sheamus taunts him, and the bar turns the table over. Brawl breaks out. Sheamus gets sent into the ring. They go to triple team Cesaro, but Sheamus throws a bunch of flour at the New Day. The bar takes out Kofi with a ring post shot. They double team Big E with the assisted white noise, and the bar stands tall to a mixed reaction. They turn their attention to Mr. Bootyworth. They take his hat. They fill it with pancake batter. They put it on his head. They humiliate him. Cesaro dumps the rest of the batter over the guy next to him, and they yell as they leave the ring, standing tall with the title belts as their music hits. Yeah, for what it is to build the match, I don't think this, sold any WWE Network subscriptions, but it felt like a classic wrestling angle, right? You got to watch a nerdy little white guy get some pancake stuff thrown on by a couple baddies.
You know who that was, right?
Mr. Bootyworth?
Yeah.
I don't know who Mr. Booty. I have a guess. It's not Dewey, is it?
It's Dewey.
Is that Dewey Foley?
Dewey Foley.
Oh, is it really?
Yeah.
I kind of thought it was. He's lost weight.
He has lost weight.
Yeah, that's why I didn't know. I was like, is that Dewey?
He's one of the he often writes and produces the New Day segments. That's why he's all often in the things with them.
I didn't want to say it and sound dumb. I'm glad you brought it up.
Yeah, it's Dewey.
Yeah, he's lost. He looks good.
Yeah,
good for him.
Mrs. Foley's baby boy.
Yeah, well, and I watch it with my girlfriend, who's not in the wrestling business by any stretch, and she's like, "Wow, look how hard that guy is trying not to laugh right now. He's having like the most fun of his entire life. He's getting to hang out with wrestlers and they're pranking him and stuff." It's like a game of can they get Dewey Foley to break? I feel like
Yeah. Well, and if you watch his face, he definitely was holding it in as the batter gets tossed on him.
Yeah. But back to kind of how does this play into Super Showdown? I don't know I don't really know what you do to make this more interesting. It's not a highly emotional feud. We've seen these guys work together a whole lot. Both very reliable. Raj, what do you expect from this tag match? What would you like to see coming out of it at Super Showdown?
Okay. I don't want to sound overly negative because I found SmackDown to be a lot better than Raw, actually. I found it easier to watch. I hated this segment. But this is something like my 9-year-old daughter, if she saw it, she'd probably be wanting to see the match. So this was something for kids. But, I love the New Day. I love the Usos, and I love the Bar. I think they're super talented tag teams. I guess, this is something for kids, and that just doesn't necessarily appeal to me. But I think they're going to have a fantastic match. They always do.
Yeah, I agree. And SmackDown does walk that line where some of their stuff is plain like 8-year-olds. Like, if I was a kid watching this, I thought that was hilarious. And I'd have probably gone and dumped batter over my brother's head and infuriate my mom or something stupid like that, having said I watched it on TV. So yeah, fluff stuff. That's for your younger brother. Let's flip to the stuff for your older brother. You got Ty Dillinger versus Randy Orton here. Something that does have a little gravity to it. I've always been a big Ty Dillinger fan. I think he's an underrated talent. He's always been able to take the ball and run with it when he was given a developmental and NXT. For whatever reason, hasn't been given the opportunity to bridge the gap. Well, here he is. He's getting to work with a really high-level opponent here in Randy Orton. This is his chance to fire back. Do you think that Ty Dillinger delivered on this opportunity, Justin?
I do, for what it was. As I mentioned earlier when I was using the comparison of what Joe and Styles need to do in Australia, I like the fact that we did not get a match. We did not get a, let's lock up, ring the bell, let's lock up, let's have a match. I like the fact that this was just a fight, that it had a grudge to it. It shows a different side of Ty Dillinger that we don't normally see. He's normally just counting to 10. So I thought I thought for what it was good. It was just a fight. And I think WWE needs to exercise this booking decision a little bit more often. Not overkill, but I think there's often times where they need to let a match not even take place, but just let it turn into just kind of let all hell break loose, so to speak. I think that can go a long way, and rarely when you do something like that, when you try to really up the aggression, rarely does that flop. You at least grab people's attention and go, okay, it wasn't just the predictable match where Ty loses. So
yeah, definitely. Yeah, go ahead. Sorry, Raj.
No, did this seem to you like it's the start of a long-term feud where they're going to head this down to Survivor Series with Randy Orton and Ty? Or did this seem like it's just something for TV for the next few weeks until they move on to Orton's next feud? Because remember last week, was it last week or the week before, where Orton teased having a next victim? I can't imagine that they meant Ty, but Ty would be someone that they put in that spot, fill in for Orton to feud with until they move on to that person, whether it's Rey, whoever it is, AJ. I don't know who else you could be. I think Jeff Hardy. It seemed like Hell in a Cell seemed like a blow off, but it definitely could be because they don't have many other people that it could be.
Man, Orton Rey, you said that, and that stuck with me. That seems like a real good thing for him. I think that Rey would be a great feud, and then you get the whole mask stuff, which Orton has been really always traditionally very good with telling that story. You know what this feud right here, and this hit me as we were talking. What Dillinger Orton reminds me of is Sami Callihan, Eddie Edwards. And Eddie Edwards was white meat, vanilla, pretty vanilla babyface over an Impact. And he got into that feud with Sami Callihan because he got his eyeball busted open and came out the other side of it an edgier, more aggressive, more three-dimensional personality. And I think Eddie Edwards is now more valuable because of that feud. I hope that Ty Dillinger gets a little bit of that same rub out of this one with Orton, because Orton's in a good place right now. And if Ty Dillinger can get on this ride and allow himself to go to a darker place and allow himself to flush out more as a personality, which I think he will, this has all the, and that's the thing is he doesn't necessarily need to beat Randy Orton. He just needs to come out a stronger performer on the other side. And I think he's capable of that.
I mean, when you're working with Randy Orton, there's a certain rub right there, but I don't know. I'm not expecting that. I'm not holding that expectation to this. This could literally, we'll get a match between these two. We'll get an actual match now, but I don't know if I don't know. I'm not sure if this is going to be what's going to take Ty Dillinger to that next level.
And let's remember, you don't always necessarily get a rub working with the top guys, right? If you're treated like a joke, it could have the opposite effect. Just look back at Zack Ryder, right? He was putting that feud with Cena and Kane and Eve Torres, and that just destroyed his career. And he's,
I'll double down on this one because I said it last week too. I think Ty Dillinger is he's going to surprise people here in this one. And I don't know if he's going to try to run over Randy Orton with his car or whatever, what extreme he's going to take this to try to battle against this, psychopath Randy Orton. But I think he's going to go there. I think we're going to see this escalate, and I think that people will get behind Ty.
Do you see Vince McMahon as seeing Ty as someone he's going to give that kind of a rub to? Like he's going to have Ty be the guy to try to run down Randy Orton with the car?
I don't know that he's going to have Orton end. I don't think that he's going to have Dillinger beat Randy Orton in the end, but I do think you're going to see Dillinger give the chance to become a much more volatile threat and become more imposing. And I don't know if this gets him to where he wants to be fully, but I definitely think it's going to get him a step in the right direction to where he's possible in his potential in WWE.
The only way this results in some major career-changing moment and feud for Ty Dillinger is Randy Orton is one of a select few people who's on that same level with Cena or Undertaker or Triple H or those people to Vince in terms of unless Orton works with Ty on some house shows, if Orton's even doing house shows, I'm not even sure. If he works with Ty on house shows, does a TV match or two, unless he comes and goes to Vince and says there's a lot that we're not doing with this kid that we need to do. That's the kind of thing that that can change things because Vince will value the opinion of somebody like that. But otherwise,
Yeah, this is a wait and see. Time will tell. This was a flurry of action that caught my attention, and they're either going to run. They're going to let Ty run with it, or they're going to allow Orton to spin off. So
and Ty is pretty much done. Stop doing the 10 chants, right?
I was surprised the crowd wasn't doing more 10 stuff when he was getting his heat on Randy Orton there.
Well, Vince hated that, so that's a good thing if they did, because I think he's more likely to push Ty if they're no longer chanting 10.
Well, they're not. Last thing I'll say on this one, I love the creativity that Randy Orton has right now when it comes to mutilating people's bodies. That finger spot and the turnbuckle was perfect, right? And this is when you've hit it, right? When you don't really even you don't have to fall down, you don't even have to move. You just kind of have to slightly apply pressure to a man's finger, and the whole crowd thinks you're nuts and the most vicious thing in the locker room. I love it. That's the sign of a true veteran right there.
Next week is going to be delivering paper cuts to the wedge and then the webbing of their fingers.
Dumping lemon juice on it.
Yeah. Oh, man. Yeah. Well, he's been talking to the UK guys, so. All right, we'll go now. We got still to come here, Daniel Bryan and Shelton Benjamin, but Benjamin's backstage warming up when The Miz walks in, and Miz says, "You're welcome," and says he saw Benjamin's recent tweet. Sorry, just dumb reading it. Saw his recent tweet about wanting a match and agrees that Benjamin is overlooked. Miz says Benjamin is the real deal. Miz says he can put in a call to get Benjamin the match with Goat Boy, and Miz asks Benjamin if he's going to beat Bryan, and he says yes. And Miz says Benjamin needs to do more than that. He needs to hurt Bryan. He needs to maim him. He needs to make a statement. And Benjamin says his statement is that he's been sitting on the bench waiting to remind everyone how good he is, and Bryan is just a casualty. Miz says that he wanted to hear that, and he'll be on commentary to see the match. And they shake hands. So a little, WWE 2K19 backstage segment here. Two heels talking to each other. That's what it felt like to me. I want to believe they're going to get behind Shelton Benjamin, but it does kind of just seem like he's been brought in to just kind of fill the slot when needed with a viable wrestling personality. I'll go to you first this time, Raj. What do you think of Benjamin's attitude at the moment?
I like Shelton Benjamin. As a personality, he doesn't do much for me. I liked the pairing that he had with Gable. I thought they could have done a lot more with that. But I just think if the point of this is still to have The Miz beat Daniel Bryan this Sunday, I think they're just throwing ice on Daniel Bryan. And to your point earlier about Daniel Bryan losing, getting him over, that was a different time. And when they did that, you notice every time they do, every week it was more the fans protesting and getting more behind Bryan with that protest. And his reactions were getting louder and louder, and he's getting more and more over. That's not happening this time. Every time he's losing and getting punked out, fans are caring less and less. They'll do the yes chants when he comes out, and that's kind of yes. That's kind of it. They'll react to some of his spots, but he's not near as over with each week that this feud has been going on. Now, if it comes back to where you try to put steam back on him, have him win the Royal Rumble, they could definitely get him back. Daniel Bryan has that. He's still a superstar. He has that connection with the fans, and they can still bring it back. But this is not the same thing as what happened last time when he was on, losing a lot. So I think if he's losing The Miz this Saturday, I think this was I just don't think there was any point in having him lose tonight.
I think we also have to remember when making that comparison, Raj, to how over is Bryan compared to the 2013-2014 run to WrestleMania 30. We got to remember.
Oh my God, what happened?
My protein shake.
Oh,
shocked at what you're saying, Justin. Go ahead.
No, we have to remember that in that run, SummerSlam of 2013, he's working with John Cena. All right, then it's the whole thing about him not, then it's the whole thing with he and Kane that was over like we're over. Then it's him not being in the Rumble at Pittsburgh, Ray gets booed, and then it's working with Triple H and Batista and Randy Orton all in a night to become champion. And it was in the time where the most eyes are on the company between January and WrestleMania. So I do think there is something to it that we are in. We're in a downtime. He's on SmackDown, which is traditionally less viewed. I think The Miz is a big deal, as we've discussed. But I think it's really tough to compare that. It's gonna be hard to ever match that run that he had and that popularity, just because for all the factors they're going into a milestone WrestleMania 30. There was just a lot of things I think that's hard to duplicate that when judging Bryan's temperature. And
let's not forget that wasn't the plan. The plan was not for Bryan to go on into the main event of that WrestleMania.
Oh, I was sitting front row here in Pittsburgh for that Rumble. I remember.
Yeah, they were booking for Bryan to face Sheamus that year. It was going to be CM Punk and Triple H, and then Randy Orton, Batista, and all these crazy things happened that got Bryan into that main event. With Punk quitting and then Batista not getting over. So it was one of those things. It wasn't like some stroke of genius that they had this losing streak that was meant to culminate in WrestleMania. They had this losing streak that was not meant to get Daniel Bryan in the main event. It was meant to have him go on feud with Sheamus and not be in the world title picture for a while. And even when he won the world title, they had him running away from Kane, and they he was secondary to the Evolution Shield feud.
That's why I say, I think that there's going to be an organicness here. Or I don't know that WWE do it intentionally or unintentionally. Like you said, it wasn't ever the real plan. But they're booking Daniel Bryan the way they booked him before. And at a certain point, the fans go, "What the WTF, yo? What are you guys doing here? We love this guy. Why are you booking him like this?" And that's where you get that kind of organic, heartfelt yes, not the packaged. Here, please continue to do this because this guy wins. Which I think then at a certain point you do level out. I think the fans have to feel that kind of genuine, what are you doing right now kind of attitude. That's what gets them behind them, and that's what pushes Daniel Bryan into the situations where you want him to succeed because that he's not been given those chances so many times. I don't know if that was completely perfectly said or not, but that's how I feel. So, all right, let's move on. I loved this next segment. I love everything about what's going on right now with Aiden, Rusev, and Lana. We come back. Rusev and Lana are out in the ring. Rusev calls Aiden to reveal this bogus footage that he supposedly has. English comes out and says the evidence is right here, but first he has some facts about Milwaukee. Lana says he's stalling and he has nothing, and English says he's just providing context. Aiden introduces One Night in Milwaukee, an allusion to sexually explicit films. And then the video opens with English talking into the phone, apparently in a hotel room. He's got his shirt off. He's wearing his trunks. It looks like English was working on the promo for that night. And there's a knock on the door, and it's Lana. And Lana said she didn't have a lot of time, but she wants to get something off her chest, something she's been thinking about for a long time. And the video cuts off right after Lana says, "I want you." Now, it looks like Rusev is asking Lana what's up with this video. And English says he wants to show us the rest of the video, but he can't yet because of legal reasons. And English says he's entertaining a large offer from Wrestling Inc. for the video. No, he said to TMZ. And he wouldn't want to cheat on them. And Rusev and Lana argue in the ring, and Lana says it's not how it looks. Rusev exits, chasing English to the back. Lana stands alone. I texted you right after this, Justin. It is nearly exactly what I storyboarded last week on this very program, which is what they did all the time in the Attitude Era, right? I'm a heel. I've got incriminating evidence. I'm only going to show you half. I'm going to get you upset. Next week, we're going to get the rest of this video. Rusev's going to beat down Aiden and then off into whatever else may be for these people. Correct? Is that
right? Yeah, we'll finally see the full-length video, and it's going to be, Aiden, I want you to start walking faster to the ring. It's going to be some ridiculous thing about that she's asking him to do, all in the presentation. Yeah, I mean, this is fun. I wish I know they chose TMZ because TMZ is like the most notable paparazzi. I wish they would have said Gawker, just given the whole Hulk Hogan stuff in the video. But that's just me. No, this was fun. This is good. I'm with you. I love the Attitude Era. That's how we label this now, is Attitude Era soap opera. It's nothing original, but it's still entertaining.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. Raj, any other thoughts on the One Night in Milwaukee segment?
I thought it was entertaining. I'm guessing it's going to be Lana was telling Aiden that she wants him to stop associating with Rusev. Some people pointing out that SmackDown hasn't had a show in Milwaukee since Rusev Day was created. But why let the facts get in the way of a story? Again, this is one of those things that it's entertaining and stuff. So it was good. But does this? And I hope this means more for Aiden English going forward, because I think he's a talented guy. I was worried he's going to get lost in the shuffle with this feud, and he still might after it's over. But he keeps doing stuff like this, and I think it's looking better for him.
Yeah, I agree. Kind of almost in this, he's like a more evolved Ty Dillinger. I hope Ty Dillinger can take the ball and run with it to the point that Aiden has with this, and really kind of found himself. We move on to Daniel Bryan versus Shelton Benjamin. The Miz is sitting ringside doing commentary. We already kind of started talking about this a little bit earlier, Justin, how you thought they were laying the groundwork here for the AJ Styles Miz feud here with Miz on commentary. I guess most shockingly here, well, not completely clean, but Shelton Benjamin beat Daniel Bryan. I was relatively shocked by that, even all things considered. Justin, right call here?
For sure. I mean, it gets more people, it gets Shelton involved, it gets him on TV. Nobody thinks any less of Daniel Bryan. It was Daniel Bryan lost because of the Miz interference. So it keeps that going. So I mean, yeah, everything makes sense here. They could have gone it could have gone opposite. It could have been Daniel Bryan beats Shelton Benjamin, and then okay. But this at least gets Shelton a win. Whether or not they build off of it and it matters next week in the world of Shelton Benjamin, we'll have to wait and see. But yeah, I thought the commentary was a shining point, as the Miz does. I like it because he's pulling from real life message board kind of stuff. He's wrestler and poking fun. It's a true divide and true debate amongst wrestling fans today, amongst fans that watch what we call professional wrestling. So I thought it was good call to get Shelton to win. I mean, if you actually think about it, our truth beats Almas, which in a little way you can kind of be surprised by in some regard, because our truth in 2018 beats Andrade Almas. You get Shelton Benjamin beats Daniel Bryan. So at least you can say SmackDown, we don't get a traditional match where Ty Dillinger loses. We get the fight that we talked about between he and Orton. So we can at least give SmackDown credit. At least they're trying not to be too predictable in how they format some of this stuff, which is good.
Yeah. I think so too. And yeah, it did put a little bit more heat on Bryan and Miz, and Shelton Benjamin got a win. I don't know where you go with that though. I don't know where you go with Shelton Benjamin right now. It's no bite to me with Shelton at the moment, unfortunately. Any final thoughts here, Raj, from you on this segment?
Again, I come from the old school where wins and losses should mean something. And kind of what your point was, Nick, if you're not going anywhere with Shelton, which I'm pretty sure they're not, why haven't beat one of your top guys, especially when they're in a feud. I know you're adding heat to Daniel Bryan and The Miz, but I just don't think these losses are helping Daniel Bryan. I would have the one time that they did have him lose, and the fans were with him. That's a formula that very rarely works. When you keep beating somebody. How many other times has that worked? And I think Daniel Bryan is colder and colder each week. I don't think this loss was necessary.
Yeah, it's interesting because we're talking about, it sounds like the way we've been talking, it sounds like we're favoring the fact that Miz is probably going to beat Daniel Bryan at Super Showdown. But if that's the case, I would have liked Daniel Bryan to maybe gotten distracted by Miz, turned around. Shelton's going to try to do something. He dodges it. He still picks up the victory, even though Miz tried to outsmart him, so that going into the bout, if Daniel Bryan loses, at least he's not looking like a dope who just lost twice in a row. So honestly, as much as we've been talking about Miz coming out, the way this was booked, it almost felt to me like Daniel Bryan would pick up the victory over Miz on Saturday. Does that sound weird when I laid out like a math equation, Justin?
No, I mean that's a funny but sometimes accurate way to try to explain this stuff. I mean, yeah, I mean we're all going on the assumption that the Miz is going to win in Australia. Maybe they really do fool us. Maybe we get a babyface. Survivor Series is a big show in LA, so maybe they give us the babyface dream match of AJ versus Bryan. Who knows? But one more thing to the Shelton point. Who knows? Maybe maybe they have a plan to this. Maybe Miz always does better because of his gimmick. Being the A-lister, he always does better when he has an entourage. Whether it's the Beat, whether it's Axel in Dallas, whether it's having Maurice, whether it was Alex Riley back in the day. There's a name we haven't said. I'd be fine with Shelton Benjamin dressed up in a suit, being kind of like his personal Secret Service, and then Benjamin getting to have some matches because he's back associated with the Miz. I mean, look, it's no worse than anything else they've done with Shelton Benjamin. I did. As Raj said, I did like Benjamin and Gable. I thought that was at least a nice substitution for Gable as a tag partner since Jason Jordan got split from him. But they've obviously moved away from that. So maybe they do have a plan for a Benjamin getting more TV time, and that would then make that win make sense. Because Benjamin would go to the Miz and say, "Hey, look, you got me a match. I got a win. This makes sense. Let's continue the business partnership."
Yeah, and Nick, when you refer to it as a mathematical equation, we call that WWE math, where whoever is left laying or loses the show before the pay-per-view ends, usually that bodes well for them as far as winning. It feels like that happens like 70-80% of the time. So using WWE math, yeah, that would seem to suggest that Daniel Bryan beats The Miz. But to your point, Justin, yeah, it did seem like they were definitely building to AJ and The Miz. So we'll see. They could always go to that after as well. So we'll see.
Yeah. All right. We're a little tight on time. So I'm going to breeze through these quick segments here. We got a recap from Raw. We got, later tonight, we're going to get Becky coming back for a big surprise. We had Naomi in the ring. Then she plugged the WWE 2018 Breast Cancer Awareness Month campaign with Susan G. Komen. Dana Warrior was a part of this segment as well. And then we got Asuka versus Peyton Royce. Now, of course, Asuka and Naomi are going to be taking the Iconics at Super Showdown, where I would guess The Iconics will be like Elvis, right? Because they're very they're New Zealanders or Aussies. Are they Aussies? I think they're Australian.
They're Aussies, yeah.
I thought so. All right. Wacky New Zealanders. They kind of sound like Aussies. Asuka, Peyton Royce here. You know, again, not a whole lot to write home about. I'm not shocked at all that Asuka beat Peyton Royce. The Iconics. It's another NXT act that didn't really make the bridge. What's going on here? You know, I don't know. That's all I was thinking watching this. Justin?
Look, it's apples and oranges. NXT is in front of the same crowd for TV every week, or in the bundle of shows that they tape for weeks. It's got that underground independent vibe. It's got that we're the revolution against the watered down Raw and SmackDown. It's just not the same. It's just not the same. You're in front of an audience that's 10 times the size every week. That's younger. It's more spread out demographically. That they're not all hardcore fans. It's a different thing. It's very few acts can. Elias obviously is a huge exception. Very few acts can really make that same thing. And Elias is bigger now than he was in NXT. That's kind of the thing. Comparing NXT success to Raw and SmackDown is an apples to oranges, and for a lot of reasons. That said, I think as Triple H always talks about, that we hear on the media calls with us, they really need to get into having NXT truly. It needs to truly be a two-way street. Right now it still has that call-up feel where people go from NXT and go to Raw and SmackDown, but it needs to be, if we don't have a lot for Shelton Benjamin right now on SmackDown, let's let him go to NXT and do some matches. Or if Samoa Joe's not going to be on the top half of a card on Raw or SmackDown, let's let Joe go be in the top of the card at NXT. Like they need to make it truly three brands, and not try to get rid of any thought of a AAA to majors.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and I feel like the problem with the Iconics too is you get the heel heat like Elias and stuff like that, where it's entertaining. You want them to get theirs, but it's entertaining and it's kind of fun to watch. Or The Miz, or Paul Heyman, or Samoa Joe, yada yada yada. The Iconics make you feel corny watching them, and make you feel like, what the hell am I watching? Why am I watching this stuff? And that's the problem with the Iconics. They're cringeworthy heel heat.
It does. I was talking about it earlier, but it's like one segment for your younger brother, one segment for your older brother, right? Like they kind of go, it's like you're either in a blood feud or you're talking with crazy words popping up on the screen.
And then you can't watch the show with anyone when you do it that way.
Well, they've definitely been courting the female audience as well. We got in the closing segment here, Becky Lynch again. Man, I am all about what they are doing with Becky Lynch right now. So Becky closes the show. She comes out. She's got a mixed reaction. She talks about how she's been the best thing going since she took the title at SummerSlam. She's made the SmackDown Women's Division the hottest thing in WWE. She goes on and shows a video package of the feud with Charlotte. Another Becky chant breaks out. She says she's proven time and time again that she owns Charlotte. Becky says she can still get she still can't get the respect that she deserves. She wonders where her magazine covers and action figures where the title are at. Becky goes on about how her face is the face of the company, and if no one will give her these opportunities, she's just going to take them herself. Yes. So she shows us the new Super Showdown poster she's designed, uncovers it, drum roll. It features only her with a foot on Charlotte Flair. She says Super Showdown isn't about Undertaker versus Triple H. It's about Becky defending her title for the first time. Charlotte comes out. She rushes the ring. They brawl. She got Flair spears Becky to mostly boos. Charlotte launches Becky into the poster. She applies the figure four, hangs off the apron, tightening the hold. Fans are chanting for Becky as Flair brings it back to the ring to boos. Flair delivers a woo, stands over Becky as her music hits. The announcers hype Flair versus Lynch, and Flair exits to her music. Becky recovers the ring, clutches the title. That's how we end the show. A hell of a job putting some fire on this. I'm more interested in the SmackDown Women's title match than the men's title match, which started the show. Raj, did you like Becky's big reveal segment here?
I did. I think Becky has been someone that has really taken the ball and run with it. I think Becky and Charlotte, in a lot of ways, is the most interesting thing that's going on in WWE right now. I think Becky, her segments are, probably the most interesting. Ronda Rousey will probably get the biggest pops because she is such a superstar right now when she comes out and people react to that, superstar. But I think once it gets going, Becky is probably the most over woman on the roster right now.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. 100%.
Yeah, I really enjoyed this segment. Everything Becky Lynch does is straight fire, pun intended. And I'll say this, with Roman Reigns, you get the overwhelm, you get the boos, but there still is people out there cheering for Roman Reigns. He still is, he has that Cena effect. He does have his demo, and if Roman Reigns can't make it to a house show, they're issuing refunds and things like that. Charlotte Flair is getting a whole lot of boos, and I don't think that she has she truly does have the Roman issue. I don't know if there's anybody really cheering for her. I think Becky truly has captivated everybody. No matter what your demo is, no matter how hardcore of a wrestling fan you are, or casual, or what your age is, I think she's really grabbing everybody. But yeah, WWE is trying to continue, painting Charlotte as the babyface and Becky as the heel. And the more they try to paint, the more people are cheering for Becky. So no matter what, though, people are engaged to this, and I kind of agree with you, Nick. I'm more interested in watching this than I am Joe and Styles.
And someone in the chat pointed out, like, the women's evolution should be more of this, and I 100% agree. More of the singles stuff, and more attention paid on the individual women, as opposed to just clumping them all together and they're all buddies and just always randomly hanging out at ringside for each other's matches. This is what's getting over. Do more of this.
Yeah, and not just with the women. I think this goes for the men as well. This is something WWE did a lot in the 90s that I think people really loved. I know people really loved, which was let the fans pick who they like and they hate. Very reminiscent of Steve Austin, Bret Hart. They did there was kind of a double turn there without either guy having to really change their persona. The fans did the double turn for them. And I think that's very much what we're seeing right now. It's very organic. The fans feel empowered by that, and they're going to be more invested because they're feeling listened to when it comes to the booking of these two. I love it.
Yeah, and I know we got a lot of other stuff. We don't have much time, so
right.
I'm going to touch on this real quick. You mentioned they should do this elsewhere, and again, I think one of the things that's hurting Raw right now is you got 3 titles stuck in one feud that feels like it's been going on forever with Strowman, Reigns, and the Pack and the Shield. Raw this past week doing 2.302 million viewers, the lowest they've ever done for a show, on a show that included Shawn Michaels, advertised ahead of time. They saved him for the end. That hour almost did lower than 2 million viewers, which 2 years ago, going under 3 million viewers would have been unheard of. So I think this 3-on-3 feud is doing nothing, and it's the individual stuff that usually works, and you're seeing that on Raw as well.
It is the opposite of what I just described, which is allowing the fans to pick who they like and they hate and organically following that energy. I don't get what they're doing with Braun Strowman on Raw. It doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, they don't want to beat him, and so instead of just having him do something else, they're still finding a way to have him feud with Roman Reigns without having them do a singles feud, and it's just killing everything. It's just boring. It's hard to watch. It's just redundant. It sucks. And I had a hard time sitting through Raw, and sometimes I'm glad when I see these numbers, because I'm like, hopefully this wakes them up. But as history shows, it usually doesn't.
It's almost like, because they do want to protect Braun, but they don't want to let him be the guy they run with. That's still Roman. It's almost like they'd be better off just keeping Braun and Roman on separate shows. That would be the best solution possible, because I'm a huge Braun fan. I've been a fan of his far before the rest of the masses were, and he's got so much to offer, as we've seen the lightning in the bottle that he captured before they did this heel turn. They'd be better off putting them separate shows.
Braun Strowman was a runaway truck filled with money. Why they decided to turn that man heel and partner up with Drew and Dolph is, I don't get it.
It goes against everything they've pushed from the beginning with Braun. Since he left the Wyatts, that the whole WrestleMania angle, he couldn't team with anyone. And that's just this past year's WrestleMania. We're not talking about years ago, and things have changed. So it's just, there's so many other things. You could have Roman and so many other singles feuds right now. Keep Braun strong. You got 2 top single stars, but you muddied the waters. You got this 6-man tag feud with no stakes. It just sucks.
Yeah. So there's that. I mean, it's also football season again, so I feel like we got to say the other things that come along with.
Sure, football season's every year. That's a crutch. There's last week they had all the season premieres and football, so it's one thing if it's Monday Night Football, just start airing on Monday nights this year, but it's every year.
Now, I do have to run. I have to go interview Brian Cage here in a couple minutes. So I do apologize for having to cut it short for that reason. But I'm going to release that, and I'm going to do the full Super Showdown preview. I've got a new podcast dropping tomorrow on the Wrestling Inc. audio channel. May become a video cast here. We don't know. But I'm going to have a lot of guests. I've got David Arquette. I've got Sports Illustrated's Justin Barrasso. I'll drop the Cage interview as part of that as well. It's going to be dropping tomorrow. I will do a full Super Showdown preview at the top of that show as well, since we couldn't get to it here. So please go subscribe on iTunes and you'll get that then. But we'll close the show here talking about Rey Mysterio coming back, SmackDown 1000. Raj, you got me so excited earlier when you brought up the idea of Rey possibly pairing off with Randy Orton, and I want that feud. That's what I want right now. What are your expectations of Rey at SmackDown 1000?
I know just with ethnicity, people are expecting probably Rey and Andrade Cien Almas. But I do like that too. I like Rey and Orton. I think I can't remember them feuding before. I'm sure they have many times. It's not sticking out, but I think that would be a money feud. So it's finally happening. It's been talked about since January. It's apparently signed by PW Insider, 2-year deal for Rey, and he'll be at SmackDown Super Show. Again, this shows the difference between Raw and SmackDown, how hard they push Raw 1000. SmackDown 1000 is kind of, they're mentioning it here and there.
I said last week I could see Almas and Rey. I could see Almas, saying, you're the old Mexican, whatever. I'm what represents Mexicans in wrestling today. Almas and Rey I could definitely see, and most importantly, it'll be SmackDown 1000 inside of the Capital One Arena, as they will be underneath the beautiful Washington Capitals Stanley Cup banner, which we raised tonight, by the way.
All right. Well, there we go. Now we've completely veered off from wrestling, so I feel like this is an appropriate time to come to an end. Please, guys, engage with us on social media, Wrestling Inc. on Twitter, Wrestling Inc. on Facebook. Leave us your thoughts. Leave us your comments. Share this out. Spread the word. We are here every Wednesday at noon Eastern. Punditing. Me and LaBar will be here every week on Wednesday. Raj will be in and out. Glenn will be here. We've got a lot of other great content post-Raw. Chats with Matt Morgan. Of course, I'm dropping my new show, The Winkly, tomorrow, again, which will have David Arquette, Justin Barrasso, Brian Cage, whole slew of great talent, a lot of great interviews, the Super Showdown preview. I'm Nick Hausman at Wink Rebel over on Twitter. Justin, where do you want to send people to find you?
At Justin LaBar.
Thank you. And Raj, how about you?
At Raj Giri 303.
There we go. Thanks so much for tuning in, guys. We'll talk to you soon.